Have you ever stopped in the busyness of life and wondered, what am I doing wrong? When you graduated school, did you look ahead and imagine a bright future? I know I did. So maybe you, like me, imagined a career, a family, financial security, travel, and opportunities. Maybe you felt like there were so many great possibilities just stretching out right in front of you. And some wonderful things happened for you. Maybe you got married, maybe you had kids, maybe some of your dreams came true, but maybe some things happened that you never expected. So you got busy to make it work. You kept your head down, you worked hard, and you took care of people. You did your best. And then one day you looked up expecting that all the effort that you put forth should have gotten you somewhere. But instead, you felt behind. And you started wondering, well, what am I doing wrong? Hi, I'm Kathy. Welcome to Life in Abundance. This channel is about faith and finances that help us build a life that we love, a life of abundance. Because I believe God wants us all to live with hope, purpose, peace, and the confidence to grow into the women He created us to be. So today, I want to talk about something many people feel but don't always want to say out loud, which is, why does it seem like other people are getting ahead? Or, put another way, why do I feel like I'm falling behind? Because if that's been a part of our life for a while, it sometimes stops being only about money and it starts touching our identity. And you start wondering, did I miss something? Am I too late? Will I ever catch up? Why am I so bad at money? And even if we don't say those things out loud, sometimes we still feel them. And the longer we carry those thoughts, the more they start affecting exactly how we see our future. So for me, this showed up when I became a stay-at-home mom. I had spent years building a career, and while I absolutely loved being home with my children, there was still a part of me that kept comparing where we were financially, comparing to the paycheck I could have been earning, comparing where I thought we should be. And there was this constant feeling that somehow I was falling behind. And what made it harder was that no matter which I would have picked, I would have felt guilty. When I was working, I was worried that I wasn't doing everything I could for my family. I wasn't present enough. And when I was home, I was worrying that I wasn't doing everything I could for our finances. So no matter which direction I looked, it felt like I wasn't doing enough. And that was super mom guilt. Maybe some of you understand exactly what I'm talking about. I carried that guilt over what I wasn't doing for years. Because in my mind, I thought I had to choose. I either could have the family time or I could build the finances I wanted for my family. And I couldn't see a way to have both. But then one day I started looking at this differently. Because what if the question isn't, why am I behind? What if the question is, actually, who am I comparing myself to? So, illustration. Imagine two people both heading west. One is trying to get across town, but the other is actually trying to get from New York to California. If you took a snapshot of them at a random moment, one might appear ahead. But would they really be ahead? How would you know? If you don't know their destination and you don't know their path, you don't know where they started from, what are we really comparing? Comparing itself kind of tricks us into almost always thinking that somebody else is ahead, and that may not even be a reality. And after I got over that, another idea hit me. Well, what if one person is walking and another person actually has an airplane? Of course, they'll move differently. And it's even necessarily because one's smarter or more valuable, or because God plays favorites. God is no respecter of persons. But He does say, my people perish for lack of knowledge. So that begs the question, if it feels like they're perishing, is there a knowledge gap? And if you think so, then good news, because God says he will give knowledge to those who seek wisdom. So all we got to do is ask and keep on asking, and he promises he will answer. And so quickly back to our example. Those who get further, maybe it isn't favoritism or luck. Maybe they simply got knowledge and have a different vehicle. And I think that's totally true in finances too. So sometimes people aren't getting ahead because they're better. Sometimes they've simply learned a different vehicle. Ownership, businesses, assets, investing, things many of us weren't just really taught. And that realization changed everything for me because I started understanding that things that I thought were impossible actually weren't. I just didn't know another path existed. I wasn't aware of other vehicles that I had never even heard of. So for years, I invested the traditional way, mutual funds, stocks I liked, the traditional investing way. And there was nothing wrong with those things. But unfortunately, they were not making a big enough difference in my finances. It wasn't enough to give the kids the opportunities I wanted to give them. But then I discovered Bitcoin. And yes, at first I was skeptical too. So I spent a little bit of time researching it. I had to look past the headlines. And it made enough sense that I bought a little bit. And then I spent years really learning about how this works and invested slowly. But eventually I realized this was a completely different vehicle than anything I had seen before. And as a matter of fact, many people totally misunderstand it. But over time, it became the vehicle to make up the ground that I thought I had permanently lost. What surprised me wasn't just the financial outcome. It was that the outcome allowed me to keep the bigger blessing, which wasn't even money. So let me say it more plainly. The bigger blessing was time. I had chosen to be home. And I thought I had to give up that paycheck and it was gone forever. So when I chose to be home, like maybe many of you did, you get to be home and spend more time and prioritize your family and pick up your kids from school and take them to activities and be present. But what happened was, even though I thought, well, I was giving up something, looking back, God redeemed that time. Because after years, so I spent about a decade at home. And during that time, I was investing. And of course, and like I said, I found Bitcoin. And then I realized that the time that I had spent at home, Bitcoin ended up being the thing that where after a decade, where we were financially with the investing got me to probably what would have been equal if I had been working. But there you go. Because of God, I had both. It wasn't in the way that I thought it would work. But God made a way where I didn't see a way. I thought I had to choose between my family or my finances. But what I eventually discovered was that the answer wasn't that I was choosing one or the other. It was that I could have both. It was that I could prioritize what was important to me. And God made a way for me by seeking knowledge, getting to understand a different vehicle for investing. And even though I didn't see that that was going to be the thing, the possibility of it still changed my future. And now the one thing that my faith has taught me is that our current situation is not our final destination. Sometimes we stare at our circumstances for so long that we stop imagining anything different. We didn't see any different way. But Ephesians 3:20 tells us that God is able to do immeasurably more than we could even ask or imagine. Sometimes we stop imagining because we've been looking at the same circumstances for so long, then we didn't see another way. But that doesn't have to be you. If you've been feeling behind, I want to encourage you with this. Comparison isn't telling you the whole story. You could just throw that away. Maybe you have a different path. So you don't have to worry about where other people have been or where you are. We don't know their struggles, their starting point, or their vehicle. But maybe if you're open to it, there's another possibility available to you that you just haven't discovered yet. So how do you discover what's for you? Ask God. Seriously, just ask him. If God didn't exist and you ask, nothing happens. No harm, no foul. But if he does, what might happen? Could the God that created the stars, the oceans, the flowers, and every beautiful thing that we see know a way forward that he is wanting to put in your hands? I think he has a way for you. And I also think that maybe asking isn't what scares people. Maybe they're scared of what would happen if God answered. Because then they might have to do something about it. Would you be one of those who are brave enough to be willing to ask and then be willing to act on the path that he leads you? To learn something new, to go a new way. If that's you, I want to leave you with this promise. Isaiah 41:13, it says, "For I am the Lord your God who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you." The God who gives the answer is also the God who helps you walk it out. That's exactly what he did for me. The answer wasn't a loud voice from heaven or an angelic being. The journey wasn't instant or a yellow brick road that appeared before me, but there was a path, and he helped me walk it. So if this video encouraged you, I'd love for you to subscribe and join us here at Life in Abundance again for the next video. And I would also love to hear your comments. Have you gone through a season where you felt like everyone was getting ahead? And if you're curious about some of the financial ideas that changed how I think about building, I've linked some free resources below that I'd love to share with you in the description right there. So until next time, I'll see you in the next video where we'll continue building a life in abundance.